Now, everybody knows that capitalism is just simply being used to con all the wealth out of Africa. There's no financial literacy. Even when you go to the universities in Africa and you look at their economics courses, no one is teaching financial literacy. The accounting is just basic. They're teaching them assets and liability. No one teaches them the importance of things like cash flow or staying in cash. What's the difference between staying in cash and staying invested? The other thing is that the game in the financial game in the Western world is very different from the financial game in Africa. Africans are born in wealth. Africans own their land, and they normally, because of the wide subsistence, Africans are in charge of producing their food, and pretty much you're born in wealth. You're born on a ranch, you have animals and things like that. So going to the city is what is now taught as urbanization. So Africans are being taught to aspire towards enslavement and trade off, sell off their wealth, sell off their land, sell off their ability to grow their food, pretty much give up subsistence and get into commercialization. So we have African families selling their land and property to take their children, for example, to school, to buy a city home. Of course, because again, government, is driven to only build piped water and push the electric lines only to the cities. So people want access to the internet, access to electricity and water, and that's deliberately put only in the cities. So it pushes the poor rancher to sell his property because of course life is easier. That's why I talk about capitalism being a trap. It's a trap because how the devil tempts. It shows you a good life, and you give up all your wealth, chasing the simpler life, and at the end of the day, you're in chains, and all your good freedom has been given away. Africans need to be taught that the true value is in owning your land and your wealth, and that African wealth is an investment, is an inherited investment made by our forefathers. So for an African to sell his land is against the African ethos, is against our ethics and our morals. Because in Africa we know that inherited land or family land is not for sale until capitalism comes in and starts tricking young Africans through the education to sell these properties. These properties are now bought by these few capitalists that then use them to control the masses. Why is poverty in Africa? Because these people who you see that are poor have no more land to farm. They've been chased off the land by the government. The land is gazetted and sold to Europeans that come in to invest in raw materials. The land has been taken away for mining, has been taken away to mine raw materials, gold and the diamonds. And these people that were natives to these lands are not taken care of. They're totally ignored. So what do? They walk to the city and they become, the street children and the homeless people. And they become a burden to society. But this burden has been created by the greed of capitalism. And there's no good government legislation to take care of people. Tomorrow, once they discover there's gold in your land, they'll just come and they'll take over. They'll say this land, eminent domain, is under government control. Because the law says that any national treasures belong to the government, belong to the colonists. And so simply the army will come and chase you off your land. This is the exploitation that we talk about in capitalism. In Africa, it might be different elsewhere, because in the US anyway, all the land is already owned mostly by the state and the few families, the capitalist families, that started this game earlier before everyone. So, it makes sense for you to, live in the city, and because you have nothing if you don't have a house in the city. In Africa, it's different. People are born in wealth. People are born with land. Land that has gold and minerals and diamonds, you know. But soon as capitalism comes into the village, they are now exploring the land. They discover there is oil. The next day, you're homeless. You're on the street, literally. If you're lucky, they'll give you some little cash and send you and your family towards the city. But you can't compare, you know, the little cash they're going to give you to the oil well that is under your land. And this is the hatred for capitalism that is in Africa. You know, people don't understand this. Africa has totally been conned. Africans have been conned of their wealth. And the worst of it all is once you get educated, you realize that most of the money that they're using to buy you off is fiat currency, is fiat money. You know, they give you $10,000, take your land, and the next day you realize that the dollar loses value, and then you have nothing. They're giving you this money, they've not trained you how to use money. You don't know anything about finance because the education system doesn't teach Africans to understand money. So you see, the whole game is hacked to make you lose. You don't know anything about finance, you don't know anything about money. The money you're using is a foreign currency, is a US dollar. You have no clue, you know, what that even means. The US dollar in reality is a fiat currency, so there's no value, it's not backed by any gold. Much as they're equating it to your gold while they, you know, take over your land. In the city, you're going to a condo where the land is owned already by the capitalists. So at best, you're going to lease it. You're not allowed to buy city land. What is this? This is enslavement. If things continue like this, in 100 years, the whole Africa will be owned by a few individual families. Probably the same families that own the US and all these other Western worlds. And everybody else will be a slave. This is why we campaign against capitalism. And this is why our forefathers, our ancestral fathers, hated capitalism. And this is why they were died. This is why they were killed. This is why they were massacred during colonialism. Because it was insanity. The African ethos considered land to be communally held. Nobody owned land, so land was not valuable. It was like water. You know, imagine someone selling you a cup of water from the ocean. It makes no sense. The same way selling land didn't make sense in ancestral Africa. Until capitalism came in. All the gold and diamonds and this benevolent African spirit is because everything of nature was considered invaluable. This is the true African culture, and because of that, development was about responsibility. It was impact-based. Then capitalism comes in and investment is only driven towards, profits, towards, what people demand. They introduce this democracy. Since when did the majority know the right thing to do? It's obvious that the brightest people on earth are the 1%. This is not a lie. That the majority will not always have the right decision to make. The majority doesn't always have the best decision to make. We know that. And so to make life fair, you take away these investments in what the few want, and then you let everybody explore. And then nature will always sieve out these winners.